Should I click anything?
You don't have to do anything.
Okay.
You don't have
Should
to
be
do
up now.
Okay.
There we are.
Should be up now.
I see us. There we are. Welcome, everybody.
Good morning.
Can we hear you, Michael? Can you hear yourself?
Yes, I was able to hear myself, although it's going to sound a
There it is.
little weird and bizarre. I'm sure you guys can probably hear that now. It's my audio is being picked up from my webcam, so that's the best I can do for now until I can figure this out. I've been spending hours trying to figure this out, so but at least we can hear. So
Right, we're in the right direction, and I'm so glad for that, because today we have an exciting conversation with Jackie Flynn. She and I have done a number of projects together, and I really have enjoyed doing that. And then, of course, we've also done some personal ones with game nights and really funny things that we can't talk about here.
I feel my face getting red.
But that's part of the importance here, right? Is to connect with people. And that's the topic, the big topic that we have today is connection. And I know that you have had some experiences that I would love for you to share with people today. But before we do that, do you have anything you'd like to say about yourself for people who maybe are brand new to you?
Yeah. Oh gosh, thanks. I'm the host of Play Therapy Community Podcast, and I love just connecting with people in the play therapy community around the world. I love EMDR therapy and anything somatic related. I love play and the polyvagal theory. So I have some courses and some summits. We have the Neuroscience of Play Therapy Summit at the beach, and then Playful EMDR Summit. But I especially love just meeting people. I love being connected to you both and whoever else is on this stream. Gosh, I can't tell you what this means to me.
Yeah, it's so exciting to have you and to have it be reciprocal, because I've been on your podcast and now you can be on our stream, so that's exciting. But this summit, like, I'd love for you to give a couple plugs of some of the trainings that you have coming up. One, it's just exciting to talk about, but the other is there might be people who are listening who will end up wanting to know more. So what do you have coming up? And make sure you put the year in it, because if someone listens to this next year, they're gonna get a little confused. So what do you have?
Thank you. We have a summit, Neuroscience of Play Therapy Summit. I think a lot of us come into the field knowing that play therapy is amazing, but we don't necessarily understand all of the deep neuroscience behind it. And it's fascinating what happens in the nervous system with play therapy. So we're on our second year of this summit, where we have some of the leaders of our field, Lisa Dion, Dr. David Crenshaw, Dr. Eliana Gill. We have Carmen Jimenez Pride and Claire Melanson. Who else is coming? Oh, Dr. Robert Jason Grant, Dr. Janet Courtney. We're going to be playing on the beach. We have like a full play therapy room, like mock setup, and lots of sand tray materials and everything. And we're going to be not just learning about play therapy, but along the way, what's happening in the nervous system. Because I think sometimes we read these books that are incredible about the nervous system, but it seems so complex and confusing when we put that in everyday language and then we apply it to play therapy. It's fascinating what's happening. And that's the why behind the what. When we see all these magnificent changes in healing happening, that's because there's something magnificent happening in the nervous system. So we're going to be doing like drum circles on the beach. Dr. Louise Peters too. She's going to be doing yoga on the beach with us. I'm going to do some of the Oaklander model from Dr. Karen Freed stuff. That's on Cocoa Beach on February 17th, 18th, and 19th. And then before that, we had the Playful EMDR Summit with Anna Gomez and Marshall Lyles. Oh gosh, that's going to be amazing. And and then a bunch of trainings, a bunch of other stuff. I found out I get to go speak for Kentucky. I'm excited, and I'm going on this Alaskan cruise, going to do some stuff.
That's That's amazing. So many opportunities. I'm really glad that you're able to expand what it is that you are doing and have to share. And I think that's just so important. So thank you for that. And you gave us a perfect segue. And just so that people know, Michael is here too. I'm just doing a lot of talking right now, so I'll stop soon so that he can have something to say. But Jackie and I are more familiar with each other than Michael and Jackie. So part of this too is just me trying to share what I know about you and some of the connections that we have along that way. But one of the things that you and I have talked about, and then you also talked about with Fiona Hill when you two did a training a few weeks ago, was combining the process and the happenings within the body and polyvagal system and digital play therapy. And so I'm really curious to know what you think is important to share with our audience about that, because I think one of the things that a lot of people can connect with you about is that you came to conversations, particularly with me, because I obviously I'm the other part of that conversation, so I was part of it, and with others as well. But you came to that with a curiosity, but not being sold on it, if you will. Not that one needs to be sold, but like not being someone who's like gung-ho digital, right? It was more, at least it's my impression, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it was more like, what is this? And then you were having powerful experiences along the way that you said, oh, there really is something here.
That's it exactly. I have to say, like, it wasn't my comfort zone. I did like using online for telehealth, and I wrote that chapter in your amazing book on that. But the actual the digital play was something new to me, unfamiliar. And I talked to you about it, and then Dr. Rachel Allfader, and then she's like telling me these amazing experiences about getting stuck behind a ladder. And I was like, wow, this is so interesting. But I have a son that grew up with the video games. I was like, but how is that therapeutic? And it turns out it's like amazingly therapeutic. I've even felt it myself just in the interactions that we've had together. And it's fascinating that really it all comes down to relationship and the capacity for relationship in this digital play space is incredible. Just to be able to have these deep connections in a way that allows us to have safety and this high interest, like I love this, but also this element of danger and kind of being in this activation, fight or flight, sometimes even shut down. And that's where we grow. That's where we therapeutically heal. It's incredible. The polyvagal theory, then one of my big passions is it applies in like every element of it. In some ways, maybe even deeper than the in-person sessions, especially if that's the space where the child is. And we may not have access to a child otherwise, other than that space. But I have to say, just as an individual, as a human, being in these Friday night game nights, I felt it in my body, that rush of like, this is, I'm having so much fun and I feel so much more confident in this area. I've grown. I found myself the next day, like I woke up with a smile on my face, just laughing about something silly that was said. And we're not even playing any complex games or anything. We played with like simple thing Among Us. And there was times where I was nervous and I overcame it. Like the first night you invited me, you and Dr. Altfader weren't there. And I was in this group with all these people I'd never even met before. And so I was like, oh, imposter syndrome. I was like, boy, they're going to find out I'm not a gamer right away because I don't even know how to do this. And I had so much fun. That's where I met Fiona. That's where we became friends. So it took me out of my comfort zone and I grew. And I think that's what we want for our clients. We want a safe space for them to be able to experience something that's intolerable in other areas.
And how do you bring polyvagal into that?
Oh my goodness, in so many ways. So it allows, okay, so we can be in distressing states and still be regulated, right? So as long as we have safety and connection, we can experience fight or flight, we can experience this immobilization shutdown and be able to expand our capacity to tolerate these distressing situations. Think about resilience, the word being able to bounce back from something. So it allows us to experience this deep connection while also scared. Like in one of them, you were the big tree that was trying to get us. And I was like, oh my God, I must have died like over and over and over again in there. But we were laughing, but I was also really nervous. So I was able to kind of expand my tolerance. Now, that's really cool in the game setting. But what's even cooler is it generalizes into every regular day life. It's not like it's only there in game setting and the rest of our life stays the same. So when people come to us with quote unquote behaviors, which we know are really adaptations of the nervous system, a survival instinct, even though, I mean, I don't want to minimalize that at all because some of these behaviors that people struggle with are really painful and really hard, but they are adaptations of the nervous system. And we can help heal that deeper level, then it just starts to slough away. And that's the power of play. So all of the therapeutic powers of play are present right in the digital area, which, for me was surprising because that's not the area that I was even interested in. And
Right.
now I'm interested in it like crazy. In fact, I'm chatting with Dakota. His name's like Goldsberry. He's a newer therapist. He's a young therapist, and I'm helping him create a polyvagal informed like play therapy space. And he's like, this area is for video gaming. I'm like, oh, do you know Dr. Stone? So he's going to set up his office like that. We just have to figure out how to get him trained and everything like that.
Really.
So it's fascinating to me. I guess I was skeptical, but now I'm like curious, like crazy. I want to get good at it.
Michael, do you have anything you want to jump in?
Yeah,
Your
no,
space?
I love it. I mean, when you had mentioned that Jackie was coming on, I was looking at some of the work that she has done, and seeing so many connections between I would say like not thinking about digital before, just looking at the work in general, then making the connections with digital, and it is fascinating, and then thinking about personal experiences and how there was tying in what she was just saying, about kind of like training our brains, to be able to, feel like be in distressful situations, but still be regulated. And just thinking about all the different years that I've spent, gaming experiences where, I had just had years of always, playing sports and worrying about messing up and, just worrying about failing the team, and then being able to have these repeated digital experiences of feeling that anxiety but having that environment of the safety of knowing and the connection with others around me, 23 other people, 40, 50 other people, to be able to have a safe space to fail, to be okay with failing, not feel the shame of it, and be able to work together, and then to see how that, now she was saying that, make me think back to how just comfortable I am, walking into space and feeling a little nervous with a bunch of strangers, but ultimately I still feel confident to connect with people. And I think I can, tie all of that back to the experiences that I had with online gaming. Um,
Do
and so,
do you think, Michael, do you think that the experiences, and I'm truly asking this, but it popped in my head when you said that, do you think that the experiences that you've had of going into a brand new space digitally, so into a new campaign, a new team, a new something, and then working through that, do you think that that has helped honed your skills of finding your people, if you will, in a new physical environment? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because if you're doing that over and over and over digitally, then I'm thinking you're having experiences where some people are people who will have your back, will help you, will support you, ask you what you need, um, reboot you in Fortnite, like whatever that might be. There are those people. And then there are the more neutral people that are more really there to do their agenda or whatever. And then there are the people who are not going to be helpful. Do you think that, and those are just three categories, I'm sure there are more, but just as a concept, do you think that having those experiences over and over in a digital space helps you identify those people in a physical space? So like if you go to the Association for Play Therapy conference next month and you walk into a room and you don't know anybody in there, do you think you have skills that generalize over to that new space that will allow you to better hone in on the people that you'll connect with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And yeah, I can give examples. It's this idea that when you're in digital games in this perspective, that 1999 MMORPG that I still play to this day, and the idea that there are all these
Massively multiplayer online role-playing game for people who don't know what that meant.
yeah, the most common one that probably people maybe at least heard of if you're in this space is World of Warcraft would be very similar to this. But this particular one is EverQuest, and it's this idea that there are different zones. So there's different areas in the digital world. And you're going there, to gain experience. You're doing a quest. You're looking for, special treasure that only drops in that area, whatever it may be. And there's other people that are doing the same. And being able to, I've had experiences where you kind of, strike up a casual conversation, and some people are very short. They'll just know yes, and it's like, okay, well, they don't really want to, so I could pick up those characteristics of the conversation to know whether I feel they're someone that is that I can be engaging with, that I could have conversation, connection with. But then there's people that aren't, and so I'll just quickly be like, okay, and I'll just kind of let them go on their way. And I recognize that carries over a lot. I could recognize that with people, when if I were to walk into this hypothetical room that we'll be in, next month. But yeah, I think that it's very interesting. And then you have experiences that I think Jackie might laugh at this one. I know I've shared it with you, Jess, where playing in a game and me and this other person in the zone, completely different. I guess like groups. In this case, they're called guilds, but we were rivals, so we're trying to like compete against each other. And I just strike up this conversation with this person. This zone's massive, so I don't even know where their character is at inside of the thing, but you can talk in a certain channel that only people in that zone can see. Start talking to them, and which is already odd enough because we're rivals. But then we start to break down, like, and at the time I'm in high school, and so it's like, oh, that's cool. Where are you from? Because it was super late at night, so I'm assuming they're on the West Coast. Like, oh, I'm on the West Coast. I'm like, oh, okay, me too. And so I have this level of control over what I want to share in this digital space. So then I'm like, okay, well, what area are you from? And they're like, oh, Southern California, same thing. We start going down the list, come to find out that this is actually someone that I've never met in this game before, but someone that I rode the school bus to or with to elementary school and junior high school or middle school. And then we were both still in high school at this exact moment. And so, like, I had no idea that he was playing this game. And so obviously the next day at school, I'm like, dude, is that really you? And he's like, yeah, is that you? And it was like, just to think about this, crazy, odd occurrence that happened through, what Jackie was saying, through this use of a safe environment, this, connection to be able to reach out and feel safe enough to identify characteristics in which, I could converse with this person. Or if they're, short, or if I see that they're going to do harm, because plenty of experiences where people, yeah, I'm interested, in this, but you stay in the area, but then you'll find them peeking around the corner and taking your stuff, and so you have to have conversations about that. So it's really interesting. But yeah, there is a lot of carryover to I guess what we would always say, right, Jess, in air quotes, the physical world.
Mm-hmm. I want to say, of course, all of us advocate being careful of what information you share and with whom about yourself, your personal everything, and certainly in a therapeutic situation that has a lot of restraints on it that you need to be careful. So I want to make sure I say that. But at the same time, this ties together, and I'm wondering what Jackie might think about this too, is this ties together with previous conversations we've had of something being a digital play being a great equalizer in a lot of ways. So like, I don't know whether or not you had any sort of relationship in any other way with this other person who happened to go to your high school before this, but let's just say you were in different groups. You know, there are all the groups in high school, right? The different groups, and some people can kind of go in between groups, and some people stay in their group, and whatever that means. Some people don't have a particular group, which becomes a group because it's a non-group. All that lovely stuff of high school that I don't miss at all. But let's just say in that you and this other person were in very different groups, but in the game, it was an equalizer because you had similar interests in the game and you connected on a different level than what sport you played or what friends you had or what clothes you wore or what color your skin was or whatever that might be, right? Because you connected about something different without having seen each other's physical form or known about each other in the high school prior to that. And I don't know what I personally think that's a fascinating component of it. The flip side of that coin is the ugly side that we don't know who it is we're actually talking to, right? But I think it's important to acknowledge there are at least two sides to that coin. And the side I'm talking about, recognizing the other completely. But the side I'm talking about at the moment is that people can come together without those initial biases and assumptions. What do you think about that, Jackie?
Yeah, it seems like definitely having that mindful safety piece, but all of that has to be present, like the Michael reference, like the term physical world has to be there too. So the generalization of that is very helpful as well. And I think where the generalization really lies is in kind of like from an EMDR therapist perspective, that stands for like eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing. It's a type of therapy that helps us kind of reprocess really distressing or things that happened or didn't happen that needed to happen. Well, we get these thoughts about ourselves. They're called cognitions of like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not safe, or I can't trust, or I'm inadequate, or I'm a bad person. And I think in these settings, especially like with the scenario that Michael was talking about, where he literally met somebody online that was part of his everyday life, they just hadn't connected. There's this capacity to be able to surpass any kind of like surface level and meet in a different realm and carry that over, which is cool. And I think about the cognitions of like, I can choose whom to trust, or I am likable, or I'm fun to be around, things like that. So I think it does generalize, and I think the safety is definitely something that it's good that it needs to be there online, because it needs to be there in our physical world as well, but in a
Yeah.
way that doesn't hold us back from like connection, because we're wired for connections. So these connections, whether, we make them online or in person, are pretty valuable to our growth as humans. But I do think sometimes the online setting, the digital setting, kind of gives maybe even in some realms like a broader opportunity to form deep connections than if we were limited to just who we organically in person cross paths with. Because I mean, for example, I wouldn't even know either one of you if it wasn't for this online world. And a lot of the people there are very special in my heart. Like I've never met in person, but I feel all the feels when I think about the connections with them. And I think that's cool that that happens online as well, in the digital play as well.
Absolutely. And the other piece of that, I think, is that there are so many, and we talked about this quite a bit in the different streams we've done, but there are so many different types of hardware and different types of software that you can one have a specialized customized experience to what the the issues are, or the concerns, or the areas of need, or whatever that might be, but then also that you can switch. So it doesn't have to be one dimensional either, which I think a lot of people think of digital as being just this really homogeneous thing. I don't even want to say category, but like all people who don't have experience, even if it's limited, in playing some of the games that are available, they feel like it's all lumped in one thing, and it's not, because depending on if you're in VR, your experience is 3D. It's going to be different than if you're using a tablet, because that's 2D. If you're using an MMORPG, which is what Michael was just talking about, massively multiplayer online role-playing game, that is very, very different than playing an art program, using an art program on your own. Your experiences, depending on what direction you take it in. And the flip side of that coin again is that can be very overwhelming. And I think for a lot of play therapists, that's overwhelming. I don't know what your experience was with that, Jackie, like, oh, I've kind of stepped into this through this door of saying, hey, there's some value here. Like, I want to learn more. I want to know more. I don't know what your experience then is of, all of a sudden this room is a lot bigger than I thought it was. And there's a lot more in here. I know that you've talked with Tammy Van Hollander about virtual reality and her passion in that. Like, that's a whole category maybe you didn't even think of when you were first stepping into this a little bit.
Exactly. Oh my goodness, yes. Oh, Tammy Van Hollander is like so crazy excited about it. And then I went to go see her in St. Augustine when she came down for our summit last year, and she had her Oculus with her. And like I was underwater, feeling like all this relaxation from all of the sensory pieces of that experience. But I think what you're speaking to is like maybe there is a fear of inadequacy for people that are play therapists, maybe if they're or child therapists using play therapy that are interested in it, but they're like, am I smart enough to do this? Is this something I could actually do? I'm like 48 years old and I haven't done this yet. And it turns out you can, but that's where the beautiful growth happens. I talked to Dr. Rachel Altvader about this too, where she's like, it really is like an atmosphere where we can truly connect with our clients because there's areas we struggle with too, and they have the mastery and they help us. So you go into it with that I am inadequate. And as you grow, you start to stretch your capacity for, let's go back to those therapeutic powers of play, problem solving, being able to express needs. Like, oh my gosh, I can't get this started. What do I do? What do I do? And you feel all these feelings. Now that sounds really usable, right? But what's happening even on a deeper level is new neural networks are being created. There's actually new framework being laid in our brain. Things are expanding in ways that not even just that cognition of like, I'm good enough or I can handle this. That feeling of like, I'm gonna be playing tonight and I'm gonna whoop everybody's butt in here. It just
or
feels
not. And that's okay
or
too.
not. It's fun. And when we can play, we have this. I think about like, especially like our clients that have been traumatized. One of the first things to go is spontaneity and that capacity for like your flexibility in thinking. In gaming, in play, the spontaneity and the capacity for flexibility of thinking is a must. So it requires us to be able to be in this space and grow. And when we do that, we feel all of the positive effects from that. So I think about like even, not say even, especially when things are difficult, there's lots of great things happening, not just with the client, but with the therapist too. Remember, we're not like this all-knowing, like, I'm so smart and you're down here and I'm going to teach you everything. Therapy is the being with someone, that connection in humanity that I am a safe presence for you, and our nervous systems are in conversation. And that helps. And it really helps for them to realize, like, oh my gosh, Jackie struggles with stuff too. And she's pushing through it, but they feel it, not even just on this cognitive level. There's this like, we're in this together.
Mhm.
That's when we can heal from things. So there's actual therapeutic benefits that goes far beyond, just like I had fun. I mean, in fact, some parts are downright scary. It's like, oh, if I die right now, I'm out of the game. It's really connecting, and it makes you. I think about another thing that goes when people have experienced trauma when they're traumatized, because one thing can traumatize one person and not traumatize another person. It happens in their nervous system, but it's this capacity to connect socially. It feels scary sometimes to be in the presence with another human, if we've been hurt by another human. So to be able to be in this space and feel a safety, connection, fun, playfulness with other humans, especially if they're humans you're just meeting, it's that like oh, I can socially engage. And then you're less likely to go into this immobilization disconnect, like, okay, I'm going to pretend like my nervous system doesn't need another person. So I think it's just powerful, all that it can do. And
Makes
Tammy let me use her Oculus, and I was like, wow, I totally want to integrate it with the EMDR therapy. In fact, somebody was telling me that on the Nintendo Switch
Mhm.
that
yeah,
they can have the bilateral, and you
I
told
got
me about
that.
the Stones, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, and just the movement itself, the bilateral of moving around, and you think about like even like when people are traumatized, there's this bound up energy in the body that when you are stuck in a situation, whether you're in an abusive situation, whether it's neglect and you need something that you're not even getting that needs to happen, or there's this shock trauma, this energy gets bound up in the body, and it can lead to like tight feelings in chest. It can make your whole system off. But with this play, there's movement, and the movement, when you're engaged, actually helps to process it through the body. There's this famous polar bear video and this Impala video where it shows like the natural instinct of being able to process through trauma is like this shaking response and movement. So if we stay sedentary, it's gonna be a lot slower process. So play itself has movement, but this digital play has a lot of movement, especially if you have the Oculus and the thing. I mean, you're moving all around.
Right.
And
And a lot of that movement is also bilateral.
yes,
So it's connecting even more because you're having to cross the midline and have experiences on basically all quadrants of space.
so cool.
And adding
Yeah.
another layer to that with digital is, of course, we talk about like the immersive, imagery, and being able to work through things. And that's the one thing that always fascinates me about digital is just the imagery that comes along with it and the immersiveness that's in there. And so your whole body is fully into it, and doesn't take long for you to jump right in. And so I love that aspect because I think it just is combining and giving a whole experience. So we talk about exposure therapy, or prolonged exposure, and also adding to like what Jackie was saying earlier about like the resiliency piece. I know even through like my own work, with all my clients, the resiliency piece from digital is huge because it's a repetitive thing, and that negative self-talk that Jackie's talking about. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. But then eventually, like when they beat it, oh my gosh, like the change, in there to go. I just tried a million strategies and I didn't give up and I did it. And it's like you can always draw back on that. You can always think back to those experiences whenever you have these moments of, I don't know if I'm good enough. I can't do this. And so I just love that we can have that, in the form of a digital game where they can have these massive different behind the ladder, getting stuck, having to put things together, solving puzzles, just millions of different situations, and have resiliency building through it is pretty fascinating.
the perseverance, the mastery, the process of it, the connecting. A couple things that come up for me is like one of my most favorite features on any digital game is the fact that you can pause, the pause button. And to be able to pause, I do this all the time with my clients. I do this all the time with myself. Is to pause and say, okay, let's assess. Let's assess the situation. Let's assess our resources. Let's figure out how we can be resilient and in this situation. And then on top of it, how can we be successful of whatever that goal is? And the pause button is just so powerful because it's something digital, unless you're in an MMO, like if you're in a massively multiplayer online game, then the game is going to continue to go on. You may find a safe spot to sit, or have your character stay, and hopefully you won't get attacked or something, but so that you can do this. But if you're playing a lot of other games, you can pause it to say, all right, what am I really looking at? What are the resources around? Where are the helpers? I mean, how much do we use that in play therapy? Where are the helpers? Who might that be? That might be the client sitting next to us. They might be our helper. It might be our teacher. It might be the other way around. And to be able to say, hey, let's critically think this through, because that generalizes out into their day-to-day life. How do you look at an environment when you're in school and you're stressed out and something happened? How do you look at that environment and say, okay, what are the resources accessible to me? What's my goal? What are the steps to get to that goal? What help might I need from a peer, from a teacher, from a whoever? And then implementing that and putting that into play with the ability to do it over and over and over again, and try and trial and error, and think through it critically to think, okay, well, I did this and this last time, that didn't work, so I'm going to try this time. And to be able to do that over and over again, I think is really something that is unique to doing this work in a digital realm, and very powerful.
Yeah.
We have some great comments in the chat. So we have Play Geek joined and said, this is such a good stream to share with parents and caregivers and clinicians and just everyone. So we're not even done yet, and there's excitement about who we're going to share this with. So thank you for that, Jackie, for contributing and bringing such great information. Talking about pausing and thinking and practicing regulation skills in real time is another category. That Dancing Gamer, who has also, these two people join us pretty much every single week, so they've heard us talking about these things and have amazing things to add. And so please, both of you, if you have anything you want to add into the chat, or anybody who's here, questions for Jackie, let's open it up to that as well. And then we also have Play Geek said to reset and come back and it be the same when it first starts. So they're depending on the game, right? Like some of them you'll start where you'll come back and return and pick up where you left off. Other times you'll start from the beginning, depending on what game and what tasks are in hand. One of the things that I thought of when you guys were talking just a minute ago too was in Akron, Jackie, when we were playing Akron. And so in Akron in VR, so one person's in VR, and when we were playing, it was me. Next time someone else needs to be the tree, because I'm getting a reputation that I don't necessarily like. The person in the headset is the tree. So the idea is that the tree is protecting its acorns, and there are these little squirrels, so up to 8 people can join on a 2D device, so mobile, computer, whatever, can join, and their job is, through different skills that they have, they come and they grab the acorns and they're bringing them back to their base. And so the tree is trying to protect the acorns, and the squirrels are trying to grab the acorns and take them. And so it made me think of that, because I remember I was the one who had played the game the most when we all got together, which was why I was the tree, and also because I owned the paid version. And so everybody else can join for free, but one person has to have paid for the version. So I happened to be that person, which is why I was the tree. And I had the luxury, though, of watching you all, and listening, because I could hear, we were on the Zoom together. I could hear the conversation, the frustration initially. What am I supposed to be doing? How do I get over to the acorns? Where do I take it? What do I do? What are my skills? And then as we played multiple rounds, it was, oh, this is how I can do it. Oh, look, she's looking over there, meaning me. I'm going to go grab, the acorn and run the other direction. And then there seemed, and so these are my observations, Jackie, so I want you to come back with yours too. But then it seemed to me that there was a camaraderie that formed between you squirrels, that then it was you guys against me, but as a much more cohesive group as we continued to play the rounds. And then it was joining together, and okay, you guys didn't necessarily use these words, but to me it seemed like, you distract her. I'm going to go grab an acorn or something. So what was your experience of that? And these are people, most of whom, if not all, you had never met in a physical space, right?
I think all of them I had met, except for Rachel, Dr. Rachel Altvader. I love her. She's so fun. Okay, so that was so fun. I have to say, in the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. This is maybe out of my league. And then as time went on, I noticed other people were kind of like, they were like, I don't know what to do. And then it did, kind of pan out because we were all working together. So it was, I think I had met Tammy too. Tammy was at that one, where we were able to kind of work as a team. And even when we died, there was like the support, like, oh, and all those vocal bursts and everything. And then there was this awareness with you being the tree. I had only ever seen you in like this nice, kind self. So I had this safety with you, but also this danger, like she's this big old tree that's kind of not safe, right? So I could experience this connection and safety while also this experience of like danger at the same time. So the next time we got on game night, I can't even remember what we did. I didn't have any kind of nervousness. I was like, this is familiar. I can do this. Last time I showed up, I didn't even know what the heck I was doing, and I had a great time and everything was okay. It was more of like the other people, I'm not in this alone. Other people are there with me, and I can make mistakes and I don't have to be perfect. Gosh, if you could take those cognitions and apply them to everyday life the quality of life really improves. But we think about the people that come to us and for therapy, they struggle with those things. They struggle with being able to ask for what they need, or to be able to connect in a way of supporting others and feeling supported, to be able to tolerate any distress. And that like immerses you in it in a way that's fun. Like literally my cheeks were hurting afterwards from laughing. I'm still not good at it, but I like it.
I think you said even the next day, like your cheeks were still a little sore from smiling and laughing so much that we had done.
I must have been smiling in my sleep. I don't know. It was nice. And that was a Friday. Like it was a hard, I remember like, I was like, I don't even know I'm like so tired. I don't know if I want to do this. And I was like, okay. Oh God, I felt so pumped up. It changed my state. And that's really helpful with people that, like anybody, to be able to not to stay in your funk, to be able to say, okay, today was hard. Let me do something to help me shift into something that is, I mean, it's all right to feel distressed and to feel bad, but it is really cool to have this capacity to change your state. And that did it. It went from like, oh, I'm so tired, I'm exhausted, I just want to lay on the couch, to, oh my gosh, it was so fun.
And I think one of the things that speaks to, and just so you know, Dr. Altvader just joined us, so she's listening now. But
we'll stop talking about her.
No,
I love her.
Keep talking about her. That's exactly what we do.
She's amazing.
So one of the things though that I think that you're touching on, she just said, "Hey girl, hey," in the chat. So one of the things you're speaking to, though, is that I think as play therapists, sometimes we get, and particularly in the digital realm, is that we get caught up in, it has to be an overtly identifiable therapeutic goal to even enter into the play.
Yeah.
And what you're speaking to is, you're saying, okay, I was in a certain state. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to get on veg on the couch. Like, it had a rough day. I did all those things. And, you know, you have all this pressure of, come on, Jackie, join, come on, Jackie. And so, meaning me. And so, so then you join, and even though the game, so like things that are coming into the chat right now is the word quiplash, and some funnies about quiplash. And so quiplash is, you didn't even know what quiplash was, probably, and
Yeah.
you didn't enter into that play thinking, I'm going to change my state.
No.
You know, like, you probably were like, okay, I'm going to join for a little while, and if I'm too beat, I'm going to dip. I'm going to peace out, you know, like, I'm going to go back to the couch. And so, but through the connection, through the laughing, through the questions and the answers that come up in quiplash, through the joining, and that all those connecting things that were happening in the brain for you and for all the rest of us, ended up being very powerful. And even though it wasn't a therapeutic scenario, there were things in there that, if that happened therapeutically, those would be very important components, and then generalizable out. So even when there isn't a key identified, this is what the therapeutic goal is, if we're going to engage in this, a lot of times you can still find value and identify them while you're in the interactions. What are your thoughts about that, Jackie?
Oh my goodness. It's totally like paralleling to when I first tried to write my first child-centered play therapy note. I was like, okay, how do I explain the value of playing with this baby doll? And says, you know, the child play with this baby doll. It turns out there's huge value. You just have to look at the underlying kind of what happened in the nervous system, what happened therapeutically there. So that, like me, I would think, if we were looking at his state, I was kind of like mobilized. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I just want to sit on the couch. But there was this meaning. I think, you know, Dr. Viktor Frankl talks about the man's search for meaning in that old book. It's amazing, my favorite book. But if you have like a why to the how, then you'll do it. So I felt this, like, okay, so I like these, I like Dr. Stone, Jess, and Rachel and Fiona. So I want to get on here and play. And then I shifted my state. I was no longer immobilized on that couch. I was then moved into connection and safety that wasn't just like kumbaya sitting there peaceful. We were actually doing stuff that was felt pressure, like you have to get that typed in there within a certain amount of seconds. And I want to kind of make it funny. So I need to be thinking clever. And all of a sudden I'm in a state of mobilization. I'm doing stuff. I'm no longer stuck on the couch thinking about how hard the week was. Well, that's pretty cool. It changed my state in the moment, but now my nervous system has this awareness that it can change states, like beyond like my cognitive level. Think about, like, even when they do pre and post brain scans on people that meditate, there's like your capacity to not be hijacked by something that steals like your capacity to be present. That is like it is a neural exercise to where, like, okay, it's like I went to this kind of analogous to going to the gym, although I didn't go to the gym, but I was able to kind of flex this capacity to, like, I went from immobilization to mobilization. I went from laying on the couch to I made all these people laugh and I made myself laugh and I had fun. And now I feel like I'm clever. I feel like I'm smart. I feel like I'm likable. I feel like I'm adequate. All of these beautiful cognitions that literally change how I show up in the world, that could change. And think about like teenagers, children, adolescents. They're really forming this sense of self. Who am I? Who am I in this world? You know who I am? I'm likable, I'm lovable, I'm creative. It changes the trajectory of their life. And if you could do that through online gaming, holy moly, that's good stuff. That's the kind of like the magic that happens in this. Like, it may not look like anything therapeutic's happening, but it's happening. It's kind of like the air. You can't actually kind of grab it, but if it's not there, you know the difference.
Absolutely. I love that. And I wish we were completely at time because it would be beautiful to leave it right there because that was just so great. Everybody, if you missed any of that, you need to rewind and play that again because that was that was fantastic. And Dr. Altvader added into the chat that just like traditional play methods, experientials for digital play help us recognize the powers behind what we're doing. So just what you were talking about, like the baby doll and trying to identify, we're doing the same thing, right? In the digital world is now we're recognizing these things and these powerful experiences and messages that we can get from that. And I think of, it makes me think of experiences where I've had child clients tell me that they accomplished something, they reached a certain level, they finished a certain quest, and that they brought it back to their parent or their caregiver or somebody significant to them, and the response was, oh good, or whatever, or something dismissive. And that's such a missed opportunity, isn't it? Because they've just worked hard. They've probably had strategic planning going in there. They probably went through a lot of frustration tolerance. They probably came up against barriers. They had to critically think. They had to do all the stuff we were talking about earlier with figuring out what the resources were, and maybe even Googling a YouTube video to try to figure out how to overcome something. Like, they did all of these things and they reached this goal and they're like, yes, I did it. And they go to the people who are important to them and their person's like, whatever.
Yeah.
So of course, then you go to your friends, you go to the people online who understand, you go to those other people. And a lot of adults, well, adults not even the right word, because a lot of digital natives are adults now. Michael's one of them. So a lot of old people like me are saying, that's not important. A lot of play therapists don't understand it to understand why this is important. And so that's why we have these conversations, because to be a place where your client can, one, come in and say, I did this thing, I'm so proud of myself, and I did all these things, and for us to talk about that, and well, what did you do, and how did you do it, and how did you figure it out, and all these pieces, that's enormous in our work, right? For us to be a place and to tell it, and then to also be a place, so that's level 1 digital play therapy. Level 3 digital play therapy would be doing that with them. And participating with them. I remember I was playing Fortnite with one of my clients the very first time they ever won #1 victory royale. It was the #1 space. So out of 100 people that get into this space together, you end up being #1. And I was with him. We were a team of 2. We were in that spot together, and we celebrated like it was huge, our celebration. And that was months and months ago, and he still brings it up today. Remember when we did that? We took screenshots on our switches, and like it was this thing we really commemorated because it was such a big deal. And I think it's so important for us to acknowledge that and to be open to it and to understand, like you're talking about. And we didn't even get into all the pieces. So we definitely have to have you come back and talk more about EMDR, talk more about polyvagal, but to understand there's so much going on in the brain, in the body, in the heart, in the mind, in the space.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you are in this with us.
Oh my goodness, yes. It's all about resourcing, all about those inner and external resources. When we could do that, I think of it as if we resource clients like that with the cognition, this felt sense of connection, accomplishment, all of the good stuff that comes with it. if they have like a glass of bitter lemonade, it's like pouring the sugar in the lemonade.
Mm.
You mix it up through the play and you can't unmix, you can't get that sugar back out. So it's life changing. I love that digital play therapy exists.
And
I think it's amazing.
just being open to it, like Jess was saying, your curiosity, I think, is allowing that glass to be there. So often people will just, they don't want to entertain it, and like you said, if that's where the child is and we don't want to meet them there, then what are we doing? And that could be, could be causing a lot of worse situations for them, because we could be reaffirming this idea that they don't matter, that what they're interested in doesn't matter, and that's scary. So I know that Jess and I thank you for just being curious, and just like we want everyone to be curious about anything. Like you said, be skeptical, but be open and really look into it. See if it lines up with how you do things, and even if it doesn't, if you see that it's working with others, maybe it's not your cup of tea, but children are being healed through it, and that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today,
Love
Jackie.
that.
Like I said, we're definitely going to be asking you to come back. So hopefully
Yes.
you'll be open to doing that.
Yeah.
And people at the beginning of the stream, Jackie talked about some of the great projects and trainings that she has coming up, and summits and meetings, and Cocoa Beach coming up in February. So please check her out, Play Therapy Community, and on the YouTube a post that we'll do of this, we can put some of your links and whatnot. So please send all of that info to us, Jackie, and we'll make sure Michael will put it up once he puts up the YouTube video. So thank you everybody for being here. We're at the hour and we could just keep going and going, but there will be a next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.